The meeting to order. Sean Callan.
Here.
Julie Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chiappa.
Here.
David Crisafulli.
Here.
Jim McKenzie's here. Kristen Norfleet and Sean Onmock are both not. Amanda Connolly.
Here.
Wonderful. If we can stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so first on the agenda is our public hearing for the 2024 capital project. So I'd like to officially open the public hearing and our presentation by Dr. Kilmer. Thank you.
All right. Move around a little bit. So thank you all. We've kind of gone through this once already, but I want to kind of go through this in a little bit more detail again. And I'm so grateful to find some community members that have come to join to learn more about this and maybe ask questions of the board during public comment. But to start at the very, very beginning, just a reminder, I came on last September, and one of the first things that we did was really take a really close look at our facilities, look deeply at our building condition survey, look deeply at all of our facilities, and were the facilities up to the standards that would meet the needs, the instructional needs of our kids. And so the Facilities Committee and the Board of Education, we've talked a lot about that. And then the question was, well, we know that the Building Condition Survey identified almost $200 million worth of work that needed to be done. So then the question is well, how in the world are we gonna be able to pay for $200 million worth of work over any extended period of time. And so that's when we sat down with our fiscal advisors and kind of came up with what we felt was the most fiscally prudent plan to try to tackle as much work as we can within the district without having to go back to the taxpayers every time we go to vote for a project to ask for more. And so when we sat down with fiscal advisors, my request was simple. It was, how do we maximize state aid, maximize the amount of work that we can get done in our buildings, and rely entirely on capital reserve, using savings, developing savings and using savings. And so that's where the long-range plan that I presented a couple of months ago to you all, and that's where it originated. And so the October 24 vote, October 29th, 2024, is the first of that phase. A vote in 24, 26, 28, and 30. So let's talk a little bit more closely about the 2024 vote, because that's the first. So it's about $46.5 million, and there is scope of work in every single building. I will talk in a little bit more detail about what that work looks like in each building, but my hope is what you'll see is you'll see a balance of focus on infrastructural needs, from HVAC improvements, windows, doors, and then also the instructional side of the house. Our facilities, our focus should be on what do our classrooms need? What is the instructional need when it comes to our focus on facilities? And I think that you will see that kind of coming through. So here in this building, Oswego High School, and you'll notice a trend, the elevator here, along with in every single building, actually within our district, they're in great disrepair. And we're actually struggling to even get parts for some of our buildings. And at at Kingsford and Fitzhugh, those are the ones that we're really concerned about, because if one of those goes down, our children that need and staff that need elevators can't make it to the second or third floor. And so that's problematic. So we have to prioritize that. Here, instructionally, the space that we're in right now is a focus. Actually, libraries across the district are absolutely a focus, not particularly in this project, but moving forward. Libraries are an instructional hub. It's an area where every child gathers at one point, whether it's in class, whether it's during study hall, whether it's for research, whatever it might be. Libraries really are an instructional hub for schools. And this space desperately needs attention for the sake of our students. Reconstruction of the technology and CTE rooms here in the high school, the wing over on the Utica Street side. How many of you went to high school here in Oswego? It looks exactly the same when you were here. I don't think there's been any changes other than maybe a couple of additional walls to try to make additional rooms within it. So what we've done is we've actually kind of tightened the spaces to try to create some additional spaces for some updated curriculum, but it's really not designed for what our kids need. And so the focus here is really on trying to design instructional spaces for the updated new curriculum moving forward, to give our students what they need once they leave us. And so I'm excited about that. Some replacement of the gymnasium flooring, refinishing of some of the gymnasium flooring. Both gyms, even though some people still call it the new gym and old gym, they're both old gyms. No matter how we say it. They are in desperate need of repair. It's not about cosmetics, it's about just the state. Especially the floors, they're chipping, they are failing in a number of areas. Some of our backboards, they're operated by old motors, they drip oil on the floors, they're not up to standards. And so they desperately need attention for not only physical education classes during the school day, but also all of our extracurriculars and athletics in the evenings as well. And then we also want to address, of course, our pool boiler plant system. and chemical storage down in the basement. We are fortunate here in Oswego to have a pool at the high school and the middle school, but there are standards. We have to keep it a certain temperature. And we have struggled to do so over the last couple of years because of the failure of the older pool heater. We've actually been using the boiler plant, if you will, to try to keep that pool heated appropriately. So we need to address that in a more permanent way. In Oswego Middle School, we're actually just finishing a significant work at the middle school, primarily in a number of the instructional spaces, and they really do look fantastic. Some of the original work that was proposed in the 2018 project was some work in the counseling suite, the nurses suite, and then the main office. Again, this is all about creating a more functional space to serve the community. And so we want to try to get that work done. We are going to have to come back to the middle school in future projects because just like our focus on CTE and technology in the high school in this project, that's an area that absolutely needs to be addressed in the middle school and future projects. So more to come on that. Now, Fitzhugh Park and Kingsford, there are slides for each of them. They look almost identical, and it's because the buildings were built at the exact same time period. I think Mr. Christofoli in 1932, 27, see? He's always got to correct me. If I was right, he wouldn't have to, but. So both need some significant work. Window replacement is an absolute must. We have a number of leaking issues and have had leaking issues for many, many years. A lot of the plaster inside both offices and classrooms constantly need repair. And so that is an additional expense that the district is taking on an annual basis to just try to keep up. So we definitely need to address that.
Ray, can I interrupt you really quickly on the windows?
Absolutely.
I've had a number of people recall that the windows are not that old. Can you address that really quick?
Sure. When the windows were done, and I don't recall when those windows were done, they're 20 years old, somewhere, they're 25-year-old. So it's not as if they're new windows, right? So they've gone through what could be considered a life expectancy for windows. However, these windows in particular have been problematic because of some installation and design pieces within it. And so the windows themselves aren't necessarily failing, but the flashing and such is allowing water to enter the structure when it shouldn't. And so we've got to address that through design, and King has been very focused on that over the last couple of years and looking at ways to address so we don't have a leaking issue moving forward. In addition to this, you're going to see HVAC replacement, so things such as whether it's boiler plants, even though some have been replaced in some of our schools, but you're going to see fin covers and heating and cooling systems and pumps. Those are all efficiency pieces that need to be addressed in our elementary schools. You're going to see this main switchboard incoming main service leaders. This is the electrical service coming into the building that needs to be addressed. Emergency generators, you're going to see a trend there. Our emergency generators are, in some cases, meeting their life expectancy, and so we do need to replace some of those. That is something that absolutely needs to be addressed. And then some of the other pieces on there, you're going to see repointing of masonry. There's definitely some masonry work that needs to be done in both buildings. Again, and then windows and exterior doors and door frames. But then again, I want to make sure I point out also the elevator improvements as well. And then again, you'll see Kingsford, very, very similar to Fitzhugh. The work is very similar. At Kingsford, there is a little bit of exterior work, some driveway repair, some steps repair, some concrete repair. But so there is a little bit of site work at both buildings. But again, our focus here is really on infrastructure needs at both of those buildings. This just gives you a peek inside of the older elevators on the left. On the right just gives you just one picture of some of the exterior work that needs to be addressed, the pointing of the masonry work that we're going to have to do. This shows you, to the right is in the library, to the left is in a classroom, but you'll see the plaster. That's what occurs as a result of that leakage. Now, our facilities crew has done an incredible job. In many cases, they come in, they take that out, they repair it, so it will look beautiful oftentimes in the fall, but it won't take long for it to go into disrepair once again. And again, it's one of those things that we really are spending a great deal of time and money trying to make these cosmetic repairs without really addressing the major issue, which is going to require us to replace those windows. Smaller work at Layton. So at Layton, we are going to be looking to replace the entire boiler plant over there. So that is original over at Layton. Riley is actually being done right now with our EPC. Many of the other buildings have been updated, so Layton absolutely needs the boiler to be replaced in this project. And then at the same time, you'll notice once again, generator replacement. We absolutely need to replace the generator over at Layton. Minetto, a little bit more an accessible bathroom in the cafetorium or cafeteria area, looking at lead filtration, and you'll see lead filtration at many of the buildings. That's an area of focus for us as well. We are going to upgrade the cafetorium AV system and curtains. This is something that we're going to kind of scatter into a couple of our buildings. Minetto this year, Riley and Layton in future years. At some point, we are going to have to address the auditorium and theater here at the high school. That's a significant project, large project that will come down the road, but that will require the theater to be offline for probably a year. And so we need to make sure our other spaces can accommodate all the work that is always done in the theater. And so we're looking at doing some minor upgrades just to make sure our students have spaces in which they can utilize during that year or maybe 18 months that the theater is not available to them within some of the homeschool buildings. There's going to be some additional exterior lighting. Safety and security is always a piece for us, so we're looking at upgrading some of those areas. And then finally finishing the playground. So as you know, Minetto did an incredible job there. HSA did a lot of fundraising. Shinneman came through with an incredible grant. They did incredible work. We got that installed this year, but it was about 3/4 of the playground that was addressed. But one thing that wasn't addressed was a solid surface. And the solid surfacing is a kind of a poured-in-place type of surfacing that allows for easier accessibility for our students with disabilities. And so we do want to make sure in this project we finish that last kind of quarter and then hopefully are able to install that poured-in-place surfacing for our student accessibility. At Riley, the focus is on the generator and the distribution system, that upgrade. As you know, we're already doing some work in Riley through our capital outlay that was a part of last year's budget. And so there'll be additional work. And then the EPC is actually going to be addressing their boilers next summer, likely, is when they will actually be installed already. So that's why you only see the generator for this project at Riley. And then at the transportation center, the big piece there is really site work. When you look, I'm going to kind of go back and forth a little bit, but if you've been to the middle school lately or transportation, the driveway is in just complete disrepair. If you have families that need to get to the track behind the middle school, they experience it. Our buses, our fleet of buses are driving over this day in and day out. It's deteriorating more and more every single day. So it is a priority that does need to be done. We are going to upgrade the fire alarm system in the transportation center and that bus garage. Again, essential. They are original and desperately need repair. And then they also have a small kind of conference room training center. It's a relatively small square foot, but there's no air conditioning in that at all. And so when they're doing any types of trainings, it really is an impressive space. It's not a large footprint, so it's not a significant investment, but it will pay incredible dividends to give our bus drivers an environment where they can do their work a little bit more conducively. And so again, this just gives you a couple of pictures when we're looking at latent. Those are the boilers, the pumps, and again, this is transportation. So how will this project impact my taxes? And that's always the big piece. Again, we've said this is no tax, there's no tax impact, additional tax impact as a result of this project, the way that we have it laid out. So out of the $46.5 million, you've got about 78% is going to be covered by New York State aid. Okay, so we get reimbursement. So aidability was a really important piece. We're very thoughtful in working with our partners, King & King, and ensuring that we're within those confines that the state puts out for us to make sure that we're maximizing the Oswego community's dollars. There is retiring debt, so anytime that we're looking at doing any capital work and thinking about bringing on additional project, we want to make sure it has a negligible impact on budget year to budget year. We want to see kind of a flat line, if you will. And so that's why timing was very important and why we're very thoughtful about that process. And so about 3% is from retiring debt. And then the rest of this project is about 20%, a little under 20%, and that's capital reserve. Oswego established a capital reserve a number of years ago. It is at $10 million. We expect to use $9 million for this particular project. And so in this project, the way it is laid out and designed, there are no additional tax impacts to the community. So what is the estimated timeline? Again, this is, estimated. A couple of things we've already done. The board has already authorized the project that you've passed the SECRA resolution. We've gone out with providing information to the public, and now we're just 2 weeks away from the actual referendum vote. So again, that is on October 29th from noon to 9 p.m. If the voters approve, what happens next? Well, then we get into true design, really getting into the very specifics. And so that will be winter 24 through spring of 25, just to give you a general idea, with the hope that we could submit finalized engineering and architectural design and plans to state ed, hopefully in the summer or early fall of 25. Because again, our hope is that we can get approval from state ed and bid early 26. Ideally, we would be able to begin work summer of 26 with hopeful completion through the end of summer 27, maybe into fall of 27. So there are two propositions. Proposition 1 is for the project, and Proposition 2 is for the establishment of a new capital reserve. We have used the capital reserve or asking to use the current capital reserve for this particular project. We are asking to establish an additional $15 million reserve to do all of the work in the next 3 projects. Based on our estimates, we feel as though we'll be able to get over $120 million of additional work done using only that capital reserve. And again, the capital reserve does not have to be fully funded. It provides us an opportunity and a space to save when we can, over time. It's not something that you fill up in a year. It is something that the board is very thoughtful about dedicating money to when they feel as though they can budgetarily. Again, with the hopes that we can do more work in the future without going to the community and asking them to contribute additional to do that work. Questions?
Right. It might be helpful for everyone to kind of explain what our thought process has been with a smaller capital projects in our planning versus something in 2018 that went for approval that we're still working on and haven't been completed yet in phase 4, but like how we're looking at everything from a managerial standpoint, much easier to put our arms around, still very difficult, being on the facilities committee and every 2 weeks meeting about these capital projects. There's a lot. But to manage something of a smaller scope, even though there's a lot of content in there, versus something that went on for years and years and years in the last capital project.
Sure. So, I mean, first, a $46.5 million project is not small. Like that's a hefty project. But when we spoke very early on, it was about how do we design projects that we feel we can get done start to finish within 24 to 30 months, right? We don't want projects that have multiple phases that take us many years. Because what happens is we can't predict what escalation costs will look like. And so then we can have these grand ideas pass a $100 million project that we expect will take 6 to 8 years when we really have no idea what the costs are going to be beyond 2. And even then, we continue to struggle with looking at estimates and coming up what we believe are our best estimates based on the current status. So really, our focus is on bringing projects, again, that we feel like we can get done within 2 years, maybe 30 months, with the hope that people will be able to see very quickly the work that's being done. And then each project leads into another. So all of our projects should inform each other. They're not standalones. All of our work should be connected in one way or the other. So as we're having conversations about this 2024 project, we've had a great deal of conversation about the 2018 project, what was on, what could make it, what couldn't make it. And then we've already started having conversations about, well, what would 26 and 28 look like? What are the needs, both instructionally and then infrastructure, that we need to make sure that we're prioritizing and addressing? And we're having those conversations bi-weekly because we're constantly getting more information. The visitation committee that the board goes into every single building every single year helps to inform. One of the things that we're going to do is the architectural team is actually going to be going and spending time in buildings with the building leadership teams to develop better understanding from a functional standpoint is what's working, what's not. What do kids need that our current facilities aren't providing for them? That really should be our function, is how are we addressing the current needs of our students and future needs of our students through our facilities.
What's available for taxpayers, community members to understand the longevity of these investments? Like when you talk about an HVAC system or boiler system, like, okay, how long is that going to make us good for? Because it's this amount of money in 2 years, but like, does this make us good for 4 years? I'm being facetious, but like, 25, something that would show like, here's how we build all this out and to make us good for a long period of time.
So that's something we could probably pull together for people if people have specific questions about that. So what are we looking at? We're looking at trying to do work that needs to be done, but also give us the biggest bang for our buck. So when we're doing HVAC upgrades, it's not just about comfort for students and staff. It's also about efficiencies. It's also about, is the environment conducive enough for instructional needs? I've worked in facilities where the HVAC systems were designed 50 years ago, were installed 50 years ago, and worked like they did 50 years ago. Technology has changed dramatically, and so we're constantly looking for ways to provide efficient use of our resources to meet the current needs. But none of the work that we're doing, you're not going to put millions of dollars into something that's going to last 2 to 3 years, right? It's about long term. Our thought process is when we're installing windows, we're not thinking about them again for 30 years. When we're installing roofing, we're not thinking about it again for 20 years. When we're doing full HVAC systems, we're not thinking they're not going to be our problem again.
But that would be nice to see, if I, being a taxpayer and looking at each of our 7 buildings, including, and then the transportation center, that this work has made us good for this period of time. Like, that we're not gonna be coming back, that we're in a solid place, it'd be nice to see, to see that.
Well, one thing I want to make sure is clear though, right? So we're going to be doing work in all of these buildings. If we're able to move forward with this project, and then we're able to move forward with the 26, 28, and 30 project, we will hit these buildings again. Only because it would be impossible to get all the work done in a single project done at one time, just because of the sheer costs associated, right? When I talked about maximizing state aid, the state only allows us to do so much work in a building before they say that's no longer aidable. So we go right to the limit and then come back to that project when that limit resets for us, which is typically every 5 years. So we're constantly being thoughtful about that work as well.
We should be clear to everybody, though, none of this work is gratuitous. Everything we're doing is because this work needs to be done. I was on the facilities committee last year, and I can say, not being a mechanical engineer is my background, I can say walking into all of these buildings, especially into the utility rooms, this equipment is prehistoric. I mean, it's original equipment. I've never seen anything like it. I used to do asbestos litigation, so I'm used to looking at old equipment. This stuff is old. It needs to be replaced. It's not efficient. We're challenging our very talented staff to continue to keep it up and running, to continue to find parts for it. And we need to bring in up-to-date equipment that we can take care of easier, that we can find replacement parts for, that we're not spending exorbitant amounts of money to try to find replacement parts for, that we're not paying more in utility costs than we need to be. I mean, we're not replacing things that work just fine. We're replacing things that need to be replaced. This is not spending money because we can't think of anything else to do. This is, we're doing things that need to be done.
No, absolutely. I've heard someone, so if anyone has a question, I sent out a communication last week, just bringing people's attention both to what was happening tonight, but to our website, but on there as well as a Google form where people can ask additional questions, and it comes right to me, and I respond to them to try to answer those questions if they have them. And someone made the comment, aesthetics is nice, but I want to make it crystal clear. No one ever walks into proposing a capital project where aesthetics is a priority. Aesthetics, it's not about aesthetics. Now, let me say this. It's not that aesthetics aren't important, right? Because the spaces that we send our kids to every day sends them a message. It sends them, whether we want to or not, it sends them a message. And do we want our kids to feel as though they're in spaces that we value because we value them? We're not. And so the space does matter too. And it absolutely has a positive impact on academic growth. It has an impact on staff morale. If you're in a space that it was designed to work well for education, everyone in the environment feels better about it. And if you feel better about it, the work improves. Okay? There's absolutely a correlation to that. Other questions?
All right, I think it's a good point to make that when this stuff is planned out through the district and King, that things are staggered too. As far as when they get done, like roofs is a good example. Mm-hmm. They're all staggered, so we're never gonna have all the roofs come due at the same time.
Right.
So I thank you very much, by the way. Sure. This has been great. I think, a point of emphasis where we're going at the state for 75% of this fund is a real important thing to highlight. Because as you know, planning things out in certain ways, we could have less or more state money. And to optimize the state money coming in is a real benefit to us as a whole. But one of the things that I hear in the community that shared with me that maybe you can address a little bit is our process. I mean, you showed it here. So we've been doing a lot of planning. You've been working with King. We've gotten to the point where we're getting ready to a vote. We're not hitting shovels for a year and a half after that if the vote is successful. So some people in the community have come to me and said, you're starting a new project when you haven't finished the old project. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why we need to be at this point for this project, even though the other project is still ongoing.
Yeah, so, and then I'll go all the way back to, I think, my first or second slide. So even looking at our projects for 24, 26, 28, and 30, I'll just take that as an example. We will start work for this project in the summer of 26. But I also just told you that I am proposing in that long-range plan that we do another vote in the fall of 26. So we will have just started that work. Why is that? We're balancing a lot of fiscal factors, right? So if I'm going to maximize state aid, maximize the dollars that Oswego uses, timing is important. We constantly have debt falling off. We constantly have maximum cost allowances resetting. And so what I was looking to do in providing that proposal to you with John Bick from Fiscal Advisors was about how do we maximize our dollars? We know we have this significant amount of work that needs to get done based on the building condition survey. So how do we get as much done as quickly as possible while maximizing our state aid, while maintaining our budget, without it having a negative impact on the budget? And so that's ultimately how it was designed. So it's not uncommon to see that. Is what I've proposed aggressive? Absolutely. King and King would tell you this was very aggressive. Even in this first project, we did this in a very tight period of time. But timing was actually an essential part to try to maximize the financials to getting the work done over the long term. Yeah.
Right.
Again, the key out of all this really is, right? Every time you do a project, it has a financial impact. Our process was, how do we get work done that makes sure the impact on the budget is completely level? That we don't see spikes, we don't see valleys, we see level. Because that we can control. We can't control a lot of the circumstances that are around us. So this plan was developed to kind of make sure we could maintain that level. Now, if there is a fiscal turn at some point in the next year or two, would we revisit that? Of course we would, right? We should be revisiting our long-range plan on an annual basis. Do the numbers still hold true? Are we still doing what we feel is in the best interest of the greater community to get this work done? Or are there other priorities that we need to be shifting and addressing?
Right. I think in answering Jim's question, the explanation of timing and maximum cost allowances towards state aid, like that's important because another community concern might be, okay, at some point in time, it's got to come. Like I know you're saying for this project, no tax levy, but really the way that we've planned it out, and again, I'll go back and say that we very much appreciate the long-range planning that you did since you came here. But to establish that, it's the timing of things and leveraging every 2 years to maximize our state aid. That's how we never surprise our community with the tax levy. So it took a lot for me, being on the facilities committee to understand how all that fits together. Before I was on the board, like I didn't understand that. So I would have definitely assumed it's got to catch up. Like how can you keep this, especially with something this aggressive, with every 2 years? But it really makes sense the way you explain it with timing, maximum cost allowance, and leveraging state aid. So
If anyone has real interest to really dig into the numbers, I would ask people to go back to, I believe it was our August meeting, I can't remember the exact date, when we presented the long-range plan. There is a PDF. It's attached to the agenda. I know it's there. And it actually has each of those 4 projects, and you'll notice each one of those projects is a different capital project amount with a different capital reserve outlay. But then what's in the next page is a really, really detailed kind of numbers of how it impacts debt falling off, how does it impact those budget, and that's why you see the changes in the total project size and the use of capital reserve. So what John did for us was he gave us a really detailed plan, but then gave you the very clear background as to what is this, if we put this into play, what does that then do to the budget lines that are associated with capital projects? So that is there for anyone to take a look at. So I would just draw your attention to that again for those that are more interested in that particular piece of the puzzle. Other questions? I have Carrie and Erica here from King and King. If anyone has any more specific architectural questions as well, but they are at every single one of our facilities meetings and really kind of leading us along the way. So I appreciate their work.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Dr. Kilmer. Yes. So at this point, I will officially close the 2024 capital project public hearing. Next on the agenda is the floor to the public, and there are a number of people signed up. So real quick, the Oswego City School District Board of Education welcomes public comment at this portion of the meeting using the following guidelines. Each speaker who is signed up is permitted 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may not yield remaining time to others. All comments must be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily debate or discuss items. Operational matters will be directed to school administration for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board will limit repetitive comments to give time to others wishing to speak as well as to maintain meeting efficiency. The board president has the authority to end a speaker's comments or close public comment as appropriate. Any additional written correspondence or letters may be directed to the board clerk for distribution to the board. The board expects proper decorum at all times, and all speakers should state their full name and address. So first we have Michael Fabius.
Hi, my name is Mike Favis. I'm at 206 Hillside Avenue. And thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions surrounding that. The first is, each of the annual budgets, we get a capital line item, and I think we had about $17.4 million in this year's that we voted on in May. Why is this separate, and how is that different? Why aren't they, just trying to understand the difference between the 2 project line items. And then I'm trying to see what is the cumulative impact of year-over-year capital projects. Are we building a large debt for the community or not? And perhaps that August Board of Education meeting might be the answer to my question. So, okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next, I have 2 initials here, T and M Low. Is one individual, maybe? 2 people?
My name is Mary Lowe. I live at 278 West Lake Road in the town of Oswego. I guess I thought this was going to be much more set up so that the public could ask questions and get answers. And I'm afraid I'm one of your really ill-prepared public who sporadically pays attention to this. So I should know more to ask you better questions. I read this. I have questions about, I don't really understand the new capital reserve and how you can create a new one and then not have any tax impact. I don't understand that. I am concerned about the debt relief, and how that's somehow covered, how that fits into this. I had looked up and found out about the fact that part of the capital project from 2017 to 2018 is not even scheduled yet to be to be finished, and I think it said this was going to be finished in 2029, so that's puzzling to me. So I'm just a puzzled public taxpayer, and I would love to know how I can understand this better. I think this is, kind of skimpy, but maybe that suits your, the PR purposes for the vote. So I did write down something about August and digging into numbers. I'm not sure that's where I need to go, but I wish I had more information and could understand this better. And I wish you luck, because this seems like a big, big project. And I also know that, the last one had a 30% increase in costs. How do you do that? How do you take care of all that? And I understand that a lot of this stuff is urgent, so I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I just wish I had more help understanding it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there MLO that would also like to speak, or just? No, that was me, Mary. Oh, okay. Then there's also a T? Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Cindy Snyder.
My name is Cindy Snyder, and I live at 43 Eisenhower Ave in Oswego, and I am a native Oswegonian. I happen to be a member of the class of OHS 1975, the first class that went through this whole high school for all 4 years. So I know this building well and the metamorphosis it's taken on over the last however many years. First of all, I'd like to ask or make comment about your wheel here. Inside the brochure, it says that our aid ratio is 88.6%, yet on the wheel you only have building aid of 77.8. And I realize that the state aid fluctuates from year to year, but is the reason why you're putting the building aid at 7.8% because you're not sure of exactly if you're going to get that much money? Also, the superintendent mentioned that there's 10 million in the capital reserve right now, and you're wanting to spend 9 million. So that only leaves the small amount of 1 million in our capital reserve that we have right now. And what happens when there's an emergency situation that's going to cost millions of dollars? As has been said, the last project, which cost 63 million, or projected to cost, hasn't even been finished. So I'd like to know the actual cost versus that projected cost. Is it a lot more than 63 million? And is that going to happen possibly with this project also? You're estimating 46.5 million. And like you're saying, you're not going to be able to start it for a couple of years, and then things increase over time. And I also have a comment on especially Kingsford Park and Fitzhugh Park schools and the windows and the replacement. My two children went through Kingsford Park School. They graduated from the high school in 2004 and 2008. And I'm pretty sure that the windows in Kingsford Park and the pointing up of the building was done after they left 6th grade there. What I want to see is, where's the accountability in these companies that were purchasing the windows, the doors, to make sure there's not leaks? Because as the superintendent said, I don't believe those new windows and doors have been in there for 20 years or hardly. There needs to be an accountability to put the things in correctly, the flashing, everything, so they don't leak, because that's costing us, the taxpayers, more money when we have to replace them so soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Greg Clark.
What I have to do. Greg Clark, 134 Lakeshore Road, formerly known as Snake Swamp Road. The Proposition 1 requests approval of a bond issue. The bonds will be issued when, and the capital projects will begin when? That's something I'm not clear about.
So
That's a question.
no, I understand. At this time, we're taking all of these questions in, and at the moment, you have your 3 minutes to ask as we're jotting notes down.
All right. The other thing that I noticed when I got this in the mail was, as I was reading it, I said, okay, how are they going to do all this without a bond issue? And I'm reading and reading, and I see nothing mentioned about a bond issue until I read the fine print, so to speak, in the proposition. In all honesty, you got to put that up front. If you want people to vote on a bond issue, you got to ask them to vote on the bond issue. It just seems not the correct way to do things. That's all I'll say. Maybe I haven't lived in the district in a long time. Maybe there's been some failures of bond referenda. I don't know. If that's the case, I guess I can understand why you would only put it in the text of the proposition. It doesn't make it right, but I would understand it. What I'm saying is you ought to be upfront in the presentation and say, we're going to sell bonds and we're going to get, is it 88% of debt service that's reimbursed, or 88% of the capital that's used for the project? That's something that's also not clear in here. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Dr. Kilmer, is there anything you want to address at the moment?
Yes. All right, so a couple of things. Let me just, I'll try to address a couple of items that I saw based on some similarity. But for anyone here, and people from home as well, if you have a specific question, give us a call. I'm happy to talk to you directly. Pete Colucci, who is our Executive Director of Business and Finance, is absolutely happy to sit and talk with you to explain, to make sure you understand each piece. So a couple of things. This idea of the cumulative impact on a budget. So every project, of course, is going to have an impact on our budget. The piece that is most important for us, and Mr. Colucci, please correct me if I go off the rails at any point here, but the debt falling off is a key component, right? So for us, we're trying to maintain and not see spikes along the way. And so that cumulative piece is something that we're very, very cognizant of and trying to make sure we're not building that. And so if you go back and you look at that document that I referred to, August, I think you'll see that explained in a little bit greater detail. And all the numbers are there for, I think, the previous 10 years and the future 10 years as well. So it gives you a really good snapshot. On the question about why does the percentage on this project look different than what we would get as the percentage of aid. So our aid ratio remains the same. The aid ratio is constant. That around 87, 88%, that's our current building aid. The percentage, when you look at on that wheel, if you will, that's what we expect to, in totality, to pay for this project, because not every aspect of a project is fully aidable. And so sometimes there are bits and pieces of work that we might have to do that the state might say, hey, that doesn't fall into one of our aidability pots. I'm oversimplifying a complex issue, but if you have more specific questions that you'd like to talk through, like I said, you can call Peter or I. We'd be happy to help you with that. One thing to make sure is crystal clear. Anytime you do a capital project that goes out, it's always a bond issue. No district has $40, $50 million sitting in a bank in which they pay for it. We go to the voters to authorize our ability to purchase bonds in order to fund our projects. So those are always, the same is true for like our transportation bonds when we come to you for buses on an annual basis. It's that similar process. But what I will say that won't ever change, when we ask you to authorize $46.5 million, it doesn't matter what the costs escalate to, the total amount we can spend is $46.5 million. Now, if costs escalate dramatically, that means we can do less work. But we can't, without voter approval, suddenly decide to borrow $10 million more. So whatever the amount is at the time of the vote is the amount, period. There's no changing that without voter authorization. And then when does this work start? This work we expect to start in summer of '26. So the estimated timeline that I shared, if the project passes, we would immediately begin architectural and engineering design with the hope that we're submitting and completing that work to state ed by next summer. State ed takes anywhere between 4, 6, or more months to actually do a full review and approve. Once they approve, we bid. Bidding, our hope is early 2026, with the hopes that we could begin work in May, June of 2026. And again, like I said, please don't hesitate. We want to, we've, both Pete and I have actually talked to a couple of taxpayers who have had just some, they were interested in just understanding the numbers and cents a little bit more. And we're happy to spend time with anyone to try to help explain that or address the questions that people have. If people have other short questions that they're hoping that I might get answered for them, go onto our website, go right at the top, it says Capital Project, click on there. You'll find a Google form that you can just type your question if you have it, and we'll be happy to email you. All I'd ask is that you keep those questions relatively simple. If you expect a 10-page response, call me. I would much rather talk you through it than try to respond in writing. Yep.
I'll just follow up on the 2018 project. That was the $64 million project. As Dr. Kilmer said, we can't spend a penny more than that. So the things that could not be done have been rolled over and reevaluated into this new project. One of the strengths of the plan, as Dr. Kilmer laid out and worked with our financial advisors in King, is the 2018 project, thinking that we were going to go out a decade of spending. Even without COVID, the cost escalation was going to be drastic. COVID made it that much worse, but there were definite problems that we as a group have learned. We should not be tackling projects that go out 4, 5, 6 years because the ability to properly predict the total costs is going to be so poor that we are going to leave things out. So part of this 2-year cycle plan is to make sure that we are planning in a way that is best financially given the information that we have. All right? There was something else somebody asked about lady asked about the questions about the windows at Kingsford Park. Being on the facilities committee at time and visitation committees at time, and David, you would probably, you would definitely know more than me about this. But it's my recollection of holding accountability is the company who installed the windows is defunct. There is nobody to go back to say, hey, you did a bad job, come fix your bad job, because that company no longer exists. We've gotten to the point where the windows just need to be replaced. So that was another question that I noted.
Just to kind of expand on that, the one thing that I appreciate having partners like King & King, we're looking at that very, very closely, right? It's about not only the design work to ensure that we have the best product and installation, but then it's also about being very, very mindful about the warranties that we expect from any of the products that we installed. And so what we spec out to be installed is just as important in this process. You know, and a lot of times when you're talking about school districts, the more we specify, the less room a contractor has to pick things that aren't to our level of quality. And so our focus has really been on making sure that we're specifying very, very clearly in design the quality work, warranty work that we would expect. I don't know, what the circumstances were 20 years ago and how that worked, but I can tell in working with King & King over the last few years that has absolutely been an important part of our conversations and will be part of our conversation if this project moves forward.
Anything else from board members? Okay, thank you. And thank you to everybody who came out and asked questions. So next on our agenda are the acknowledgements of all the wonderful things going around the district with Kristen.
Pilot began this month. Miss Amy Rappin is working in conjunction with SUNY Oswego to provide this opportunity to our students. In addition to learning professional skills and getting hands-on experience, these students will have the opportunity to earn credentials to assist in their future career paths. OHS choral concert was held on Wednesday, October 2nd. The ensembles presented a variety of songs and featured their, I'm going to phone a friend here, Tom, what's that word?
No, wait a minute. Go ahead. I lost it. I was just listening.
Solfege.
Solfege.
Solfege?
Solfege, sorry.
There's solfege warm-ups. It was a fantastic performance overall. Oswego High School is also proud to congratulate the following students who've been selected to Area All-State. Mr. Dumas from the music department tells us that this is a record number of students selected for Oswego. Miles Bandla for mixed chorus, bass 1 alternate and vocal jazz. Nathan Carr for mixed chorus, bass 1 alternate and vocal jazz. Daniel Dunn for mixed chorus, bass 2. Gianna Ellingwood for mixed chorus, soprano 1. Leah Norton for treble chorus, alto 1. Xavier Vasquez, symphonic band tuba. Romello Velazquez, tenor 1. Leonard Lynn, alternate bassoon. And Kian McCarthy, alternate French horn. Moving to Minetto, cultivating a love for reading through peer connections. To nurture a love of reading offers our students a meaningful way to contribute to their school and embrace our Minetto Way philosophy. Each classroom is partnered with a book buddy classroom. Every week, these paired classrooms come together to read, building positive relationships among their peers. Moving to Fitzhugh Park, the 5 elementary buildings in the Oswego City School District will utilize the $2,000 gifted to Fitzhugh Park by the Garrett Dunsmore Memorial Foundation to support bringing Omega Man and Friends to present their interactive assembly that focuses on anti-bullying, social and emotional learning, PBIS, and character development. We're currently working with the company on the final quote and dates for their visit. We are grateful to the Garrett Dunsmore Memorial Foundation for their generosity to the Oswego City Elementary Schools. FPS has also started up its Classroom Buddy program this year to build our school culture and overall sense of classroom. Oswego Athletics, men's golf spotlight. Gavin Ruggiero advances to state qualifiers with spring 25 with a team best score of 78. Tanner Palmatesso shot a 38 versus ESM, helping in the Buccaneer victory, 215 to 235. The September Varsity Athletes of the Month, Kevin Water for varsity golf. Kevin played well in his senior season. He's been match medalist on 3 separate occasions this season and had multiple sub-40 9-hole rounds. He led the Buck golf team to an impressive 10-2 record headed into the sectional tournament. He also won the senior spotlight event at Owasco Country Club with a 9-under score of 27. And Cora Shield from varsity girls volleyball. Cora is an athlete that shows up, always puts in hard work, and is constantly bringing in a positive energy to our team. Cora is a captain this year and a great leader who you will always find laughing or making another teammate laugh. If you know Cora, you know she is always hustling and sliding on the court to make sure every ball doesn't drop. A great athlete that never gives up. And that is our tour around Oswego.
Great, thank you very much, Kristen. Next on the agenda is the Board of Education. There is one item, and this is a resolution to adopt a special post-referendum meeting the day after the capital project vote, so 7 a.m., October 30th, 2024. So if I can please get a motion for the resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent's report. Dr. Kilmer.
Good. I'm going to invite our middle school and high school principal to come forward. As the board knows, and hopefully the community is aware, we did a great deal of work last year on developing our strategic plan our mission, vision, core values, and priority areas, and identified a number of areas and goals for the district. I have asked each of the buildings to develop their own action plan. And their action plan is a way to move the district work forward, but what they're doing in their own buildings. And so both Amy and Raina are here to share their high school and middle school plans. And then at our next meeting, we'll invite the 5 elementary school principals to come and share their plans as well. And so with that, actually, Matt, I think who has the clicker? Oh, Amy, you have it. If you would just go ahead and click those first two, just emphasize the mission, vision, and core values. You'll see, I think, intertwined throughout all of our action plans throughout each of the buildings, and we'll keep on coming back to this. So the action plans will be provided to you again in this meeting and in the next meeting, and then throughout the spring, each of the buildings will come back and give us updates onto their work and their progress to keep the board up to date as to the great work that's going on in each of our buildings. And so with that, off to you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the board and to the community members, as well as my colleagues and Ms. Spalding, which is my assistant principal. I apologize. I'm losing my voice that fall time of year sickness, so I will do my best to do this and answer questions. I didn't have anything on good news because I thought it would be more personal if I told you some good news. So first and foremost, the middle school is under tremendous renovation, and I can tell you that today, when we arrived, that our windowsills were finished, as well as all of the temporary walls in the cafeteria, which made it super dark, were gone. So we have windows again. So things are coming along and looking great. I know that those of you that have been there or driven by, it seems to be slow in progress, but the work that they're doing is great, and we're excited to get into those new classrooms. One of our big things, which I'll talk about, is attendance. And I'm happy to say that we had 65 students that had perfect attendance in September. And so we highlighted one of those students to win an award just randomly. I apologize, 165 students had perfect attendance, not 65. We also did the same incentive with staff. So I'm excited to say that 38 staff members had perfect attendance for September. And so then we're challenging to just increase those numbers and to get kids on board as well as staff on board. Without the teachers there, we can't have the instruction. Without the kids there, we can't have the growth. So we're really excited that that is coming together and that we can celebrate that. As well as our character education, we focused on respect for the month of September. 12 students were recognized for that award. They don't know that yet, so more information will be coming out soon in publications. But so there's some really good things happening, and we're really excited to get moving. So we're breaking up our strategic plan into 4 things, which you will see throughout all of our plans, focusing on school culture and climate, our student success, community connections, and our operational systems. And it repeats itself, so I'm going to skip over just sake of time. So our culture and climate, one of our focuses is to consistently implement our Buck Pride program so that students are very much aware of our expectations and what we are expecting them to do in order to be successful in school, as well as enhance our incentives and opportunities for all students. Some of the things that we're working on is all of our grade level teams were assigned a color. So we've brought in a color challenge. Wasn't sure if this was really gonna take off. I have seen some very creative. My entire yellow team became minions on their first Spirit Day. The kids are really excited about this. It's fun, challenging. They wear something yellow. They earn points for their team. Any of our Spirit assemblies is earning points, but there's also random days on what team has the highest amount of attendance, and you get extra Spirit points. Or if somebody's doing something respectful or responsible, which is our monthly target this month, extra points. It also ties to our bucks. I have to say that very slow to say that correctly. Each team has a different color buck for our store. What that means is that they earn it for doing the right thing, having their work done, answering questions, being helpful in kind and being supportive, they can use those to not only buy items at the store, pencils, pens, fun things like that, but they can save them for opportunities that each of their teachers have come up with, as well as the office staff. For example, lunch with myself, lunch with a teacher, a party for their friends, to homework incentives, to extra credit incentives. Depending on the team, the opportunities are there for students to earn and to save. We've also had some high-level incentives this year. So we're going to bring some great things at the end of the year. They're not solidified yet. We're working on, for example, maybe a bicycle or something of that nature, where students can save up and earn tokens or earn their bucks to put in for tickets for a drawing at the end of the year. So again, nothing that is anything but positive reinforcement of doing the right thing and knowing our expectations. Also with that, we are really looking into surveying the students, asking the students what is exciting for them. We really thought it would be a lot of those little items and little trinkets. It's not. They really wanted to spend more time with their classroom teachers or have opportunities to have open gym, have opportunities to have field trips again. So we're listening to the students and constantly surveying them to get their feedback of not only what is going to get them excited to come to the middle school, but what is also going to get them involved in the school. So what are we looking for? An increase in students knowing those expectations, consistent monthly character traits that are not only in our building, but they're aligned with the high school. So as our building right now is doing responsibility, so is the high school. So it's trying to work together on those transitions, that our behavior expectations are clear and well established. So right now we're focusing on our cafeteria expectations and our tardy to class, and we've tied that to admission to the dance. So if you're consistently late to class, I'm sorry you're not able to attend our dance. If you're not making every effort to behave in the cafeteria, then those are something that you will miss out on. So making that an expectation that you follow that way of community in our school so that you can attend all of those events. And then trying to make sure that all of our kids have the same learning opportunities and experiences so that it's more equitable in the middle school, so that everybody has the opportunity to attend a field trip or some kind of an experience by grade level, so that when you go to a 7th grade team, your experience in that team is the same as somebody on the other team. So that is our climate and culture. For student success, we're really focusing on that 20th percentile of students that are below proficiency, and what can we do to give them opportunities to work on their literacy and math scores, as well as how can we show an increase in their iReady scores in proficiency and on grade level. So one of the things that we really focus on is key vocabulary in all of our content areas. We know that key vocabulary is one of the foundations to make it successful for students to learn the material. So identifying that by department to get that out to our students. One of the roadblocks, per se, that we noticed is our master schedule locks us into some of the opportunities that we can have. So our leadership team is working on options in our master scheduling to allow more opportunities to not only get the support that they need, but less opportunities of them being removed from special area classes to get that support. So, for example, some of our kids in literacy enrichment may need to miss out on a technology class to get the reading support because of the schedule. We're working to take away that barrier so it's more equitable for all of our kids. Create those common assessments. So again, going back to that, whatever 7th grade classroom you're in, you're having the same assessment, the same experience, so we can look at that data to make data-driven decisions to move our students forward. Utilizing that iReady scores, there is what's called My Pathway, where students get in on their individual level in work. It's becoming an issue in middle school of when does that happen. So providing that time where students would stop and have that opportunity during the day to work on those expectations. Looking at 7th grade world language, we currently do not offer it until 8th grade And in that model, if a student is not successful in 8th grade, that knocks them out of some opportunities in the high school. So how can we bring it to 7th grade to give more opportunities for our students? And then the big one is connect with families. So there's an increase in attendance rates and increase in student participation because, again, it's all of us together that's going to make these changes. And I think I pretty much talked about one of the key things is a technology family night with the grades now being on School Tool, with Parent Square, making sure our families know how to access our information is important, and make sure they're aware of what we're doing in the building is important as well. Community connections. So how do we expand student engagement with the use of technology and communication? And how do we transition better from elementary to the middle school, and then again, middle school to the high school? So how do we make that a little bit more consistent? So increasing communication from our classroom teachers on Parent Square is one of my goals, is to get that established communication so you know who your child's teacher is, and you can ask questions if you have that, as well as weekly communication to families as well as staff from myself. A wellness community connection family night that we're working on, opportunities for families to come in and explore other services just beyond education support services that our community offers. Literacy coaching open house. Again, those literacy supports that we can offer to help you to support your child in their literacy learning path. The technology night in conjunction with the high school, focusing on not only internet safety, but how do you get to that grade book and how do you get to that parent portal? And then creating the materials for families for kids that are coming from elementary to the middle school, as well middle school to the high school, so that the transition's a little bit easier and that there's information that is available. And you don't have to wait if, oh, what if I miss that orientation? I don't know what to expect. So we are working on that, on both sides with that. And then finally, our operational systems to expand and create more opportunities to increase family involvement in community events and provide those resources. So identifying students in need of support and update that weekly, restructure our school schedules to meet the needs of the students, providing childcare to families at events so that more families can come, surveying our families to evaluate the feedback of how we're doing or what other options we could bring to the middle school to our families, as well as a building-wide hub for staff and links, which we've already been able to do. So it's just basically a Google Doc with a page full of links for all of our staff. So if they need to know where a schedule is or where something that can help them, it's all on one page. And working on more of those opportunities for families as well. So that is the middle school plan, but I wanted to open up. Do I have time? We're going to move to high school. So hopefully I will see you again soon, and we'll have some nice updates for you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hi there. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Raina Hinman. I'm the high school principal. I'm excited to share our goals with you tonight. So under school climate and culture, we are working to create a framework for proposing some course offerings. In anticipation, we're going to have some construction coming on in the future, and we need to have a more robust offering for our students. But with that, we need some student choice and some student input and some input from some other people. So whereabouts their material will be delivered, and that's a fluid document that can be changed, but based on the current assessment of that data and informing their instruction to be able to update those pacing guides will be an outcome indicator. We're also looking to create a survey for students, community partners, to determine the interest that's going to then inform our elective offerings. I think it's really important that we involve our community with that, and I do have a steering committee that will assist with that. And with that, we would like to create that survey for a potential administration for the 25-26 school year. One thing, when the visitation committee came through, OHS isn't here, we're looking for a little bit more school pride. So with that, working with the PR at City, Sarah McCrovey is fantastic. We also have some technology classes here that students can be involved with, and our print shop to improve the visibility of some community pride. We need the Buccaneer on these walls. We need the kids to be proud about the school they walk through. And earlier, I know Dr. Kilmer was talking about the aesthetics of the school. This is where it's really important to feel comfortable. This is our students' second home, our staff's second home. So we really want to work on that. So what we're working on is an implementation of a visibility plan and getting some Buck logo branding and some student work displayed throughout the school. The next goal is to celebrate our student success, not just our top students, but all of our students and their growth. So even a student that may have a 65 and their GPA went up 5%, to reward them and recognize them for that growth. So with that, we are going to continue our recognition ceremonies, but add a facet to it that shows growth and not just our top students. We will continue our Buck of the Month, which we have sponsored between Buck Boosters and Tully's, and appreciate that partnership. And we're going to reinstate the Super Buck recognition. Before I got here, the Super Buck recognized those things that are not necessarily academic. It's things like kindness and respectfulness, and those qualities that make the whole child a great person, a great adult. That's our real goal here. So with that, we will be reinstating our Super Buck recognition. That is something that was done in the past. I'm really excited for that. And we also will have our merit awards, which is, again, showing not just our top students, but recognition of growth in all of our students. Additionally, we need to recognize the positive staff contributions. So we will also be implementing a Buck of the Month nominated by our staff members to recognize our staff members as well and all the great things they're doing around our building. Under student success, we are moving into the PLC process, and as part of that, we really need to make sure we have a clear purpose statement for our guiding coalition. So we'll be meeting to discuss that purpose statement and then sharing that with our staff so everyone knows where we're headed. And the professional learning communities is really bringing everyone together to get those best practices and do what's best for student learning. So I think it's really important that we start with that purpose statement here at OHS. Something we've been focusing on for the last year, I mentioned the last time I spoke with all of you about Mrs. Clark and her attendance committee, is reducing our chronic absenteeism. We've sent out communications regarding how important it is for students to be here in school. We are also going to continue sending communications out. We have daily phone calls from our social workers and our counselors and Mrs. Clark and her committee. We still continue to send our letters at the 6 or the 12-day absences. We actually, every 2 weeks, have a meeting with DSS, and we're discussing students and what we can do to get those students here at school. And we will know that progress. Once we had that attention on it, we had some great growth last year. We're hoping for that same success. Using our end-of-the-year reports from School Tool will help us gauge where we are at the end of the year on that. The other thing we really need to focus on, and we have been focusing on, and we're really honing in on, is that reducing our students who are failing 2 or more courses. In order to keep our students on track for graduation, they can't be failing 2 or more courses throughout the year. And if you're doing that as a freshman, and then you're doing that as a sophomore, by the time you hit your senior year, you're running out of time and running out of opportunity. So for us to really hone in on that and really focus on that will help make sure our kids are on track to graduating on time. We are offering academic support 4 days a week. We have been offering that since I spoke with you last. In addition, we are utilizing the Learning Lab. Every 5 weeks, we are pulling reports, and we are having those students go into the Learning Lab, anyone who's failing, and receiving that additional support. So reports just got pulled today. So with that, we will also gauge that using the end-of-the-year reports with our pass-fail rates. Community connections, when I was talking with the team about community connections, the conversation spun around to sometimes our families can't get to us here in our building. So how do we go out to our families? So our guiding coalition actually wants to tackle this, and I'm excited for this, is to determine locations where our school team can go into the community to provide resources. So we'll have our doors open here, but we have our hygiene hub. Can we provide the hygiene hub out to certain areas in Oswego, and where can those places be? So we want to start a plan for outreach within the community so that our school community is assisting our Oswego community. We are looking to research and create a plan for establishing an HSA, the Homeschool Association. Oswego High School is the only one that does not have one. And in talking with Dr. Kilmer last year and then talking with the team, we do feel that is a missing piece here at Oswego High School. So this first year, we're looking to research how to create that HSA, to follow a process for that, and then get people interested in joining a homeschool association here for Oswego High School. We are looking to establish regular updates for families. With the marking period report cards, I'm looking to send home a digital newsletter that not only shares the good news that you all hear, but what's upcoming. I think that that's really great that when they get that report card through Parent Square, a digital newsletter will be sent home to families. And we will have our team leaders and our teachers contributing to that so they know what's going on in the classroom. I think it's really important. Sometimes the kids aren't telling that at dinner conversation. It's really great if we send that communication. For operational systems, since I got here last year, I'm finding that we have systems and we have protocols, but there's not an organization to them right now. So it's a matter of putting things in one spot and making sure everyone's following the same protocols. So we are looking to establish a school-wide system that will collect that data for us, academic, behavioral, meet the needs, and we're going to identify some focus areas going through our school tool data. We'll create some processes and protocols that are focusing on those areas and then start implementing some interventions. So with that, our outcome indicators, the way we'll get that, we'll actually have a Google Drive for Oswego High School where all of our teachers and staff members can follow the exact same protocol. So it doesn't matter who you call or who's here and who's not here, we are still following the Oswego High School way. Any questions?
From the board. Thank you very much.
Thank
both
you.
of you. Anything? Anybody? Okay, excellent. All right, so next on the agenda are the committee discussions. Is there anything from the audit committee? Dave?
Met last week, I believe, and Ray's going to be good enough to schedule, I forget the gentleman's name, to come in and address the board, the findings and everything.
Tom Zuber.
I think it's next, I think we scheduled him on the 5th. He's coming in on the 5th to do that final audit presentation.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be hearing from Tom Zuber. Community relations, Sean isn't here. Is anybody else on the committee? Is there anything from?
I'm on the committee, nothing as of
Okay.
yet.
Thank you. Facilities committee,
Oh, we're good.
good? We've had enough facilities conversation for the day. Yeah. Policy committee,
We're meeting tomorrow morning bright and early.
wonderful. And visitation?
We are going to Riley School on Friday, so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the updates. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. There are 2 items that I'd like to group together, please. So if I could get a motion for consent agenda items A and B.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries. At this time, there will be need for a short executive session for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation. So if I can get a motion to move to executive, please. Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Yeah, we'll be back shortly. Okay, welcome back. Can I get a motion to adjourn executive session, please? Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, back to the regular meeting. Next is personnel. Start with item A, resolution to adopt an agreement and general release. So if I can get a motion for personnel item A, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second? Thank you, Kristen. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a single administrative recommendation for teacher evaluations. If I can get a motion for item B, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Any comments on item B, administrative recommendation? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have our professional staff recommendations. I will group them together. These would be items C through E. So if I can get a motion for items C, D, and E, please.
I'll
I'll
make the
make-
motion.
I'll second.
There we go. Tom first, second Julie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay. Next, we have support staff recommendations. There are a number of them. These are items F through M. So if I can have a motion for F through M, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion on items F through M? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have finance, and I'm going to group the first group together. These are items A through F, please. So if I can get a motion for finance agenda items A through F.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion?
Yes, I know that I had asked this question before about the contract with Lisa, and how do I say her last name right? Deneen. Can you just talk to me about this again and the work that she's going to be providing in our district?
Yeah, so she's a special education consultant. We'll be bringing her when necessary to work directly with practitioners, teachers, to help and support them in supporting students. So there's not specific work per se. It's on an as-needed basis. So, for instance, if we have questions or concerns, or a teacher expresses concerns in a particular classroom, and they feel that they are looking for additional suggestions as to how to help and support and program, she would be someone that we would bring in, shadow with that teacher to help and provide some guidance for them and strategies as they're trying to implement. But she could be utilized in a variety of different ways, because she has a variety of expertise.
And did we have someone else that served in this role before?
No, this is different.
This is
Now,
new.
we use
This is-
Kelberman
Right,
in a
right.
similar vein.
Right.
Kelberman comes in for a couple of hours, provides some feedback. This would be, I would foresee using Lisa as someone to come in and spend an entire day with the teacher from start to finish. Work almost shadow with them to help and support and provide suggestions, if you will, in the moment, versus observing and then coming back and providing feedback.
So it sounds like this is obviously going to be a benefit to our teachers.
Yes,
Wow.
and hopefully kids. Yep.
Yeah, and who are needing
Additional resources. Yep,
that consultant service,
Yep.
really. Okay,
yep, that's the hope.
okay.
Thank you, Julie. Any other discussion from the board? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll pair G and H together. And so if I can have a motion for G and H.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second? Thank you, Kristen. Any discussion on items G and H?
Yeah, under H, The way it read was, it was an estimate on the estimate of the price or whatever. Do we get any prices for that from a contractor or anything, or are we just doing an estimate?
We have estimates from the contractors, yes.
Okay, so that price should be in line, pretty much?
Yes, I mean, again, you never know what happens when you actually begin construction, but we feel good about those numbers.
Okay.
Anything else from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Last item is item I, so if I can have a motion for item I, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion on item I? I'd just like to thank Dr. Kilmer and our athletic director and their team for working with the county to help set us up at Legends. I think they're beautiful fields, and this is one of the ways we talked about community partnership. This is a great example of that, so thank you very much. All right, anything else from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have our student representative, Amanda.
Hi, so I do have a few things. Students have been bringing up how there's a lot of smoking going on in the bathrooms and that it's like obvious you can walk in and just smell it. So I didn't know if we could, like, on behalf of my classmates, like, try to, like, figure out a plan to combat that. Or, like, I know it's, like, a nationwide problem, and it's definitely an issue in high schools, and it's starting to trickle down to the middle schools as well, and sometimes even elementary schools. So that was brought to my attention. And also, a lot of students believe that there's not as much recognition for people that are going above and beyond in schools and like not positive reinforcement, and it's more for the students that are lower and starting to move up and not just the kids who have always been on like the upward side. And I didn't know if there could be like more discussion about that because I know that that has been brought up in many years past. And the last thing, I wasn't personally in the building for. I was at my New Vision rotation, but there was a fire drill on Thursday, October 10th, and it was in between periods, and I heard that it was very stressful and chaotic, and apparently it was planned. Once again, I don't really know that much about it, but students were told that like some teachers just didn't know about it, and it was very stressful for the students, and a lot of kids felt unsafe. So I don't know if there was just miscommunication on like the administration side of it, but yeah, I just heard about that, and that was it.
Thank you very much, Amanda. At least for your second point of recognizing all students more, it was great to hear Dr. Hinman talk about that as one of the goals in her presentation. So making sure that we're acknowledging students at many different levels, not just maybe the top 25 all year, and finding different ways to recognize academic and non-academic greatness.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh. Okay, my apologies then. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, that is what I said. I feel like a lot of kids, like they get the top 25 ceremony and we all appreciate it, but we also think that sometimes the merit awards aren't always aimed towards the top kids, and sometimes they feel like they've kind of been shorted and just there's other opportunities that they could be recognized, but they're just not really. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is items from the board. Any board members have items? Go ahead.
I just wanted to applaud both the girls soccer and the girls volleyball. There's certainly maybe other sports teams who did it as well, but I know that the girls soccer and volleyball both did breast cancer awareness nights for their respective teams. And I wanted to thank them for putting together those programs and trying to bring both awareness and celebrating people who've had that impact their lives.
thank you, Kristen. Anything else from board members?
Jim, if I could, I just want to give a shout out to a group of students, and I think it's more than just the girls' varsity soccer team, but Raina, and I know in previous, like with the Buck Boosters and things that we talk about with culture and at the school level, there's the past few boys' soccer games, there's been a significant amount of students that have come to support them. And it really changes the environment and for the student athlete that's playing the game. And so last week, there hasn't been many wins for the boys varsity soccer team, but the environment that they played in with a bunch of the girls coming and how loud they were. I mean, it was pretty loud. It wasn't that they won 4-0. Our team won 4-0. But, you know, I heard from a player that it was really about the environment that they played in. It wasn't that the players scored. It wasn't that they won 4-0. It was their peers and the support that they got up in the stands from kids that they see every day. I mean, this is where we need to go. And we need to figure out a way. And similarly, the Pageant of Champions, getting the athletes and the student body to go support our music program. I just think that that feeling and hearing kids express that it's beyond the sport or the athlete. So a shout out. I know it's more than just the girls varsity and JV soccer teams, but I applaud them for coming out and supporting them.
Thank you, Sean. Any other board members?
Oh, sorry. Well, I said it last month, but I'll say it again. Tomorrow is the Buck Spirit Parade, starting at 5:45, lining up at 5 at Kingsford. And you are the Grand Marshal, Dr. Kilmer, correct? I've been told. Yes, he'll have to bundle up. I've been informed it's going to be cold. The community has been invited to come out and support the students, from the marching band to the athletes to some clubs to elementary schools. We'll all be participating in the parade. So if you live or want to venture on over anywhere from, let's say, Niagara Street on West 5th, all the way down to Utica, and then all the way from 5th and Utica all the way to Hillside. So it's a really quick route, but it'll be very spirited and I hope loud. Sean, right? Lots of fanfare. Any of the board members at the table, you're welcome to jump in my car. We're gonna have a Board of Ed car. Join us.
All right, thank you, Julie.
Yep.
Anybody else? Gentlemen, you're good? All right, there is another need for an executive session for the purposes of collective negotiations pursuant Article 14 of Civil Service Law and the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation. So if I can get a motion for executive session, please. Thank you, Kristen. Second?
I'll
Thank
second.
you, David.
Dave.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is anybody opposed? There may be a need for a vote. We don't know until after the executive, so. If there is, it will be in the minutes. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.